So that's like the biggest thing is anytime someone steps in the gym, we always have to go up, shake their hand, talk to them for a split second, and then we'll pull conversations out, throughout workouts, after workouts. And then something that we do too now is we're starting to have some like meetings with our players. And so that's another, great relationship building tool that we use. But that's the most important thing in our program is we want to make sure every player that walks in our gym feels loved, they feel welcome, they feel heard, they feel seen. So those are pillars in our program that we want every player to experience. And that's kind of what we do first is we're prioritizing that over, the workout or over, the drills that
We're listening to the Bridging Impact podcast, transforming leaders on and off the court with host, Coach Furtado. Without further ado, let's dive in. And welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact podcast. We have here founder of Game Time Elite Training, Gabe Macias. Welcome to the show, Gabe.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you for having me on, and I'm super excited to chop it up today.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that I love about Gabe, going from afar, we're in the same business group, is his philosophy in training. And before we dive into your philosophy, I love to kind of understand people and why they love the sport that they are in and coaching in. So can you talk about how the game of basketball has made an impact on your life?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I pretty much grew up around basketball. My dad was a high school basketball coach. So, at first, honestly, when I was younger, I would say like early elementary ages, I wasn't really like into it. But for whatever reason, starting like around like fourth grade, I found like a love for it and got into sports. And so, I played, like any kid in the rec leagues and stuff and started off there. And then, as I got older, I started getting better and I pretty much dedicated my life to it. Like every weekend, or sorry, not every weekend, every day I'd be playing basketball, be working out. I was the kid who was a gym rat, working out 3 times a day, waking up at 5 a.m. sometimes and getting in the gym, getting working. So I grew up around it, man, and I just wanted to make it to, be a college basketball player and maybe just like a professional player one day. But, growing up, one thing I always that hurt was injuries, man. I was always getting injured. I had 7 major knee injuries from 7th grade all the way to my freshman year in college. So that, took a toll on me and that really was a mental battle for me and a physical battle. There was a lot of times where I was thinking about giving up the game and just completely quitting, after, my first couple. But, I just kept going, kept pushing through. Eventually found, my passion and which was coaching and training and developing players. I found more of a, it felt better when kids would hit me up and say, "Hey coach, like I'm seeing so many results. Thank you." Or when parents would hit me up and say, "Thank you for what you're doing with so-and-so. We're loving the program." Those things always felt better to me than actually, having a good game, scoring 20 points or having a double, whatever it was, like those things always felt, cool, more, it felt more fulfilling, than actually playing the game. And so, that's kind of what got me into training consistently is just, I did it on the side and kind of did it, as I was like in high school, as I was in college and, growing up, I never thought, basketball training could be like an actual job. But the more I did it and the more I saw how big the training industry was becoming, I realized that it could be a path for me.
100%. So I think one of the key things I hear, kind of from your story is, obviously you're hardworking, the work ethic of waking up at 5 a.m. And also the resilience too to come back from 7 major knee surgeries. Can you talk about how some of those experiences that you had as an athlete have now influenced you as you obviously have to have grit, work ethic, and resilience when it comes to having a training business and making it full time?
For sure, yeah. So it was 7 major knee injuries. It wasn't surgery. So I had one surgery and I dislocated my kneecap 4 times, and then I fractured my tibia once and then fractured my tibia twice and then tore my meniscus. So only one surgery. But yeah, no, honestly, that shaped me to who I am today. Those in order for me to be where I'm at today, those things had to happen. And I didn't really realize that until like a couple years or like, a few years ago. I kind of got early into my training career. In order to be successful, there's going to always be some bumps in the road. There's going to be some major bumps. Some bumps are going to be, bigger than others. It's going to be, some mountains that you're going to have to climb over, but those things are going to shape you to who you are today. And that's what I'm always telling players. If you're in a rough patch right now, this rough patch is necessary. You need it. It's part of the journey. It's part of the process. We can't give up when we are, going through those battles. A lot of times people don't realize is that when they give up, when they're going through these battles, their breakthrough point could have been right around the corner, but they never knew it. And they quit before that breakthrough moment happened, so there was many a times like where I almost quit, but that breakthrough eventually happened. And I know it's going to happen for all of us as long as you stay consistent. You can't lose unless you quit. That's kind of the mindset that you have. You're not going to lose unless you quit. And that breakthrough, it might take you years to see that breakthrough, but that's kind of something that you kind of have to go through. And that's what I experienced, growing up playing, growing up just training, like I almost quit training too, just because it was so hard. And like, how it is, like as being a trainer, it's at first, getting started, it seems like it seems like almost like you can't do it. It seems like it's not enough to be, sustainable. And there's been plenty of times where I thought about giving it up, and going and quote unquote getting a real job. That's what so many people told me to do, is just go get a real job. But they don't realize that this is actually a real job. Like this can be sustainable as long as you just stick through it. So anybody that's going through battles right now, it's some tough times, just understand that your breakthrough moment is coming. Who knows when it's going to be. Don't just get discouraged if someone has a breakthrough moment before you. Everybody's journey and path is different. So just stick through those hard times, and I'm telling you, there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
100%. And I think one of those things that I feel like I get challenged with, right? We before we hit record, for those that are listening, we were kind of chopping it up about our businesses, and I feel like it's so easy with social media now to compare yourself, right? Whether you're a basketball player or a basketball trainer, right? As a basketball trainer, I could be like, oh, Gabe, look at him. He's got X amount of followers. Look at all these kids that are coming into his program. He's making X amount of dollars. And you kind of talk about overcoming some of those mountains. How did you make sure that you stayed focused on, what was important to you, which was just training and serving the athletes that were in front of you?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. It's kind of hard sometimes in those moments too. Like, you're all over the place. You're thinking about so many different things. And honestly, what got me through that is just, I kind of just knew that at some point I would break through, and like, no matter how, and that's kind of always just been my mindset with anything that I do, is like, no matter how hard it is, I know that, there's going to be a moment where just something just clicks, and things start to kind of just kick off. And so I always knew that no matter how hard times get, there's always going to be something that's going to, spark and hit that, next big jump. So me, when I was going through those hard times, what just kept me motivated is just knowing that it's going to happen, and these, like I mentioned earlier, like it's so necessary to struggle and to go through those battles, because it's just going to shape you to who you are. And it's going to eventually be such a big part of your story. Those battles is going to be a huge part of your story. And I use those things to add on to my story, and to kind of form my story. And my story has so many more, years and chapters until it's finished. But, those things are going to be shape me to, who I eventually become, or eventually what I'm remembered for.
100%. And I think one of the things that connects both of us is our passion for shaping and developing, our athletes and just young people in general, right? You were talking about how, you not only value basketball skill development, you're talking about the mindsets and leadership skills. And so as we help our athletes kind of overcome some of these mountains, how do you design, kind of overcoming challenges and giving athletes the tools to overcome some of those challenges in your programming?
Yeah. So one thing that like you just mentioned that we're big on in our program is the thing that we specialize in is mindset training. I shouldn't say specialized, I'm not a specialist, but this is something that we study, every single day, and we're trying to, find all the new trends and find different things that are just helping athletes be better mentally and be better leaders. So things that we do to help players, get over these tough times is one is we do a lot of breath work, a lot of meditation. I know that life can be stressful, it can be cause anxiety and be overwhelming at some times. So we do things to help us kind of get back to the present moment, things to kind of calm us down. So a lot of things that we do is breath work. We have different breath work techniques that we use to help players get them back into the present moment. We do a lot of meditation, different meditations that we do. And then, also just talking to them and just kind of hearing, how things have been and just kind of really understanding players and what's going on in their lives. And then being able to give them advice based on, what is going on, because, they think that the root of the problem could be something that's happening on the court, but little do they know it's something that's going on at home. It's something that's going on at school. So just really getting to know players too, and just talking to them and building a strong relationship with them is vital in being able to help them get over, those problems. Everybody's different. So you really have to get to know every single player and know what they need, because some players, they might need more skill work. They might need more, more of a mentorship role from you. They might need more, might need you just to give them only a little bit of information, not kind of overwhelm them, So it's like, it's just finding that balance, and just, I think it's going to start though with getting to know every player first, and then you can kind of give them different techniques, different strategies, different things to kind of handle, these battles that they're going through.
100%. How do you make sure that you prioritize those relationships when it comes to training? Like I think it can be easy sometimes. It's easy for a coach to show up, right? Most of us coaches, we know the game of basketball or whichever sport we are teaching.
Mm-hmm.
The art is then making sure that we make time to actually get to know players. And I know that sometimes, like, I know for me as a trainer, sometimes in the back of my mind, I'm like, when I like spend a little bit of time talking and communicating and building that relationship, I almost can like see a parent in the back of my head being like, oh, reps, 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 right? So it's like kind of having that art and balance of navigating the human relationship with also like the skill development that parents are paying for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's something that's big in our program. Is we make it a priority every single day to build these relationships. Like, we have a goal. So me and the trainers that I work with, after every session, we have like not it's like just kind of checking in, and we were rating ourselves like on how the day went. And the thing that's always up first is like conversations and relationships. Did you do that today? Did you go out and did you talk to somebody? Talk to someone every single class, multiple people every class, and just learn something. Learn, how things are going outside of basketball. Learn how things are going in their season. So that's like the biggest thing is anytime someone steps in the gym, we always have to go up, shake their hand, talk to them for a split second, and then we'll pull conversations out, throughout workouts, after workouts. And then something that we do too now is we're starting to have some like meetings with our players. And so that's another, great relationship building tool that we use. But that's the most important thing in our program is we want to make sure every player that walks in our gym feels loved, they feel welcome, they feel heard, they feel seen. So those are pillars in our program that we want every player to experience. And that's kind of what we do first is we're prioritizing that over, the workout or over, the drills that we do.
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly what the Bridging Impact podcast is about. Is like transforming leaders on and off the court. And you can't transform someone and impact someone if you don't know who they are. So you're
Mm-hmm.
prioritizing that time. And with that, you also talked about leadership development.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you recognize and you build relationships, what strategies and how do you help teach leadership to young athletes?
Yeah. So one thing that we do in our program is like we try to, when we're going over drills and stuff, what we've noticed is we have players kind of design the way that a drill, like the rotations, like if they want to figure out, like they'll ask us, hey coach, how do we rotate in this drill, like what's the next, where do I go next? We just have them kind of figure it out, talk amongst each other, and we always notice that there's um yeah, at first there was, a couple players who would do all of it, like, hey, put you here, put this, do this, go there. I think this is going to work best. which is good. And then, they started allowing, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And they'll start asking players around them, and then players, start speaking up, and they start, giving their input. Sometimes we have players just design drills like, okay, what drill? I want you to design a drill real quick. What do you want to do next? What kind of fits in the flow of what we've been doing so far? So we'll do different things like that. We have players come up and they'll share. So at the end of all of our sessions, we have a journal session, and the journal session is dedicated to building just the confidence and leadership skills of each and every player. So we talk about different leadership topics. We talk about different confidence topics. And so players might have questions, they might have answers, and we'll have them, share it with everybody. And they'll, give maybe a certain person advice, a couple people advice, or they're just, answer the question for everybody. So they're coming up and they're speaking in front of everybody and talking about different things that are working for them, and different things that, maybe that they need help with, and so other people will speak up for them, and help them out. So those are some different ways that we're building leaders inside of our program.
I like it. You're having athletes reflect. You're having them come up and
Mm-hmm.
you know practice public speaking, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of them are frightened by it.
Oh yeah.
They'll laugh, they'll be clowns all day when they're training, but when it comes to like talking about something that's a little bit more serious,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good skill for them. And then also, I think I like when you talking about having players design drills and design rotations, because they're a lot of athletes now, they have club teams, right? They got trainers. It can be easy for their whole life to be done for them, but I think that
Mm-hmm.
initiative and learning how to design things for yourself is just like such an important skill for life.
Oh yeah. No, I agree 100%, man. Like that's something that I was kind of took me a while to adjust to, was like letting players kind of do things. Because growing up, I'm sure we all had, the coaches who were wanted to be the puppet master, wanted to be in control of everything, and didn't really give players a voice. And so it can be kind of foreign to players when, they do step into our gym and they do like see these things, and it's kind of sometimes uncomfortable for them. But I think it's just so important with, the way the world is. Like you have to have these skills, you have to have these traits down, and the more that you can really step outside your comfort zone and just lead and communicate and talk to others, it's just going to take you so much farther. So, that's the biggest thing in our program is we want to get players ready for life. The ball's going to stop bouncing at some point. So, we need to teach them skills, that are going to help them forever. I think a lot of basketball programs that I see, I could be totally wrong, but they just focus on building the athlete, which is fine. That's fine. But I think we're doing players and parents a disservice if all we do is just teaching the game, right? There's so much that goes into the game, and there's so many life lessons that can be taught through it. So I think, if we're not teaching these players these life lessons, we're doing them a disservice. So that's big in our program.
Yeah, there's a ton of life lessons that can be learned in sports, and I feel like it's a missed opportunity if we don't do that, if we
Mm-hmm.
don't design that and kind of bake that into our programming. And I'm curious, I think one of the things that I'm always trying to develop and get better at is, as far as accountability goes, how do you help hold your athletes accountable, right? If they're not focusing on journal sessions, is it conversations one on one and talking with the parents, or how do you make sure that they're following through with your guys' standards?
Yeah. So right now what we do is we keep track of everything in our gym, like points wise. So we have like a whiteboard in our gym. You get points for you know scoring or winning a certain drill. You get points for talking in front of the group. You get points for raising your hand and giving some advice, input. You get points for doing homework, for doing a bunch of different things. We give points out for a bunch of different things. And so that's one thing that kind of helps them keep them accountable. But then another thing is we're actually in the process right now of kind of just like revamping our culture. And a part of it is like giving players kind of more um, giving players more of a leadership role, giving them more value where they can, step up and state their concerns, step up and, hold people accountable, call people out, and they're not like afraid to kind of speak up. And so we're in the process of doing that right now. Still not fully done yet, but I'm just reading the book called The Culture System. And so I got a lot of ideas from that. So we're kind of in the process of trying to fulfill our culture system. But also another thing too is like there's certain rules in our gym too that we have is like if you don't like every time you score in a drill or you get a point for whatever it is, like you have to yell it out. And so if you don't hear someone else yell at the score, you can just tell them, "Hey, you're at 0. You need to yell out your score." So like that's another way like we have players hold each other accountable or hold themselves accountable. And like players know too, like now it's kind of getting to a point where it's like players don't really get upset if they don't call it out. Like they know, like, it's my fault. I didn't call it out, you know. So they're not like looking at us and be like, "Coach, what the heck?" Like I was just about to call. Like they know. It's kind of just like, you know, they kind of know already that it was coming if they didn't call it out. So yeah, there's just like certain rules that we have set, and I think the rules and kind of the way that you structure your program can lead and help you get the results that you're looking for. Whether that's leadership, whether that's confidence, whether that's accountability, um, you know, the way that you set up your program can help you get those results.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's where the magic is in building a program is it's not just basketball, right? We could just
Mhm.
teach, drills and stuff. And so, what kind of can you share your process and how some of your programming has evolved over the time since you started Game Time Elite Training?
Oh yeah, who I think it's continuously evolving, man. Like every few months, like I'll even just add new stuff that's just so different than what I've done in the past. And I think that's like the biggest thing is like us as trainers, we have to consistently improve and add on to what we're doing. You know, we're preaching that players work on their game and they evolve and they you know, add certain things. And but I notice a lot of trainers they don't do that themselves though. You know, they're teaching the same way that they taught 5 years ago. And every single year I'm doing things that are different than the year before. Or, you know, doing things different than I did last month. You know, and if we're preaching that and we're big on that, then we have to do it ourselves as trainers and coaches. I think I just got kind of off topic. What was the question again? If you can remind me.
Well, to be honest, that's a
Yeah.
place where I want to go. And so, just to
Okay.
continue to expand on what you're talking about, how do you make sure that you make time and prioritize time and learning? You talk about you're reading the culture system right now,
Uh-huh.
but do you
Yeah.
read, you podcast? I mean, obviously, I know we're both in the same business group, but how do
Uh-huh.
you prioritize your learnings?
Yeah. Every single day I just set out time to learn. You know, so every single day there's a time on my calendar where it's just study time. And so whether that's studying business, whether that's studying basketball, whether that's studying mindset, leadership, like there's always just time and of the day where I'm just going to study something. I'm going to learn something, and then I try to apply it too. So I always make time for that every single day on my calendar because I think that's the biggest thing. You know, once we stop learning, we are going to, you know, stop helping players get results, right? We need to continuously evolve and put ourselves in situations where we're testing, you know, new things out, right? And don't be afraid, you know, sometimes too, I'll even tell my players like, yo, this is something new what to do right now. I don't know how this is gonna work. This is something I just created in my head, you know, an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and we're just gonna try it. And it may or may not work. And just being vulnerable too, just letting them know, like, hey, like this might not go the way it looks. I could look like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing if we do this, but we're gonna test it out, you know. So just being vulnerable, and they understand that too, you know, just because like now they kind of see like they understand that it's just part of human nature to make mistakes and to mess up, and that's okay. You know, like if they understand that you're okay with it, they're gonna start to realize that it's okay too for them to do it. You know, because we have players that are in our program sometimes that like newer players who just are so frustrated with every mistake that they make, every missed shot that they take. It just adds to the frustration, you know. And so when they understand, like, okay, I'm okay, like making a mistake in front of all you guys, you know, they start to realize, oh, maybe it's not that big of a deal after all, you know, if I am making these mistakes. Um, but yeah, that's to kind of go back to what we are saying. That's what I do to really, you know, make time to constantly improve. Is I just set time for it every single day. Got to get it done every single day.
I love it. Yeah,
Huh.
no, that's super important. I've been trying to reprioritize that because it is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, that's what I talk about all the time. Is I see that with coaches that I've been around before. It's right. We want to continue to evolve, and that doesn't just mean looking at X's and O's and trying to
Oh
find the
yeah.
new kind of systems and ways of basketball's playing. It's like new teaching methods, new ways to communicate and connect with athletes, and obviously leadership and as business owners we have to make sure that we're staying top of line because it's not just coaching, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
running an entire organization. And so kind of pivoting towards kind of the business side of things, I think one of the things that I've learned, one of my probably biggest learning lessons, and as we kind of wrap up on the year is just like learning how to be a coach, right? But that's like the technician of it, right? That's not the business owner side of things. So
Mhm.
what have you learned when it comes to like starting a training business, and how it's beyond training and coaching?
Yeah. There's so much more. Like people just think I just, all I do is just head to the gym for 2 to 3 hours every single day and I'm done, but
Yeah.
they don't see that I'm actually working from 8 to 8. I'm working, 10, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. They don't see that, I'm working all day long. But it's something I love though, so I'm not complaining. I can't complain about it, but they just don't see, what goes on behind the scenes. Something that I've learned is you really have to treat this like a real business. You can't just allow people to pay, per session, because you never know when they're going to come back. And not even that, it's just like they're not going to get results if they're just coming one time. If you really want to see a real transformation takes time. And so that's what we do in our program, is we want to see a transformation. We don't want you to come to our program if you're only going to be here for a month, because we can't help you. You're not going to see as good results or the results that you want if you're only here for a month, as opposed to being there for 6 months. So we don't accept players that can't stay committed for like a long time. We're only taking players who are committed because, that's the only way that you're going to see results. So all of our, memberships, it's long-term commitments. So they're all long-term. And then another thing is like we add so much more value than what we, charge you. We do so much more. We're having meetings, right? We're constantly, checking in with parents, checking in with players individually. We do mindset topics. This actually Sunday, I'm starting my first mindset webinar where everybody in our program, they just get a free, they're just coming in. It's just going to be mindset focused. So we're adding just different things that are just providing so much more value than what you're actually paying for. Um, so, you know, providing more, I think that's another thing that I've learned. And then, lastly is like we already talked about this, but just relationships with everybody, players, parents. I think that's huge in running a business, and just caring for the athlete outside of the sport, is something that I've learned too. I'm sure there's a lot more, but that's kind of the things that come to my head, off the top.
Yeah, those are the top pillars. And so you kind of talked about that communication with parents, and I think parent involvement is incredibly important. And
Hmm.
I believe in terms of like how I've designed our programming, like, I don't maybe want parents necessarily to come to every single training and be barking on the sidelines, but I want them to be a part of the process because they're parents, right? And
Hmm.
so, when it comes to your programming, like how do you help educate the parents about your program, and how do you keep them involved and engaged, because they are a really important part of the athlete?
Yeah. So, I will send out like text probably like once a month, just updating them, just letting them know how, their athlete is doing. So we'll do text like that. Sometimes I'll make phone calls and just check in with them, let them know like what updates that we have going on in our program. So like just frequent texts, frequent phone calls, and then going to games too. Like I went to a lot of high school games last season, and I'm planning to go to a lot more this season. And then some of our middle school players are playing in all in kind of like the same league, so I'm going to be checking out some of those games and just showing up and letting them know that I'm here for them and I'm going to do whatever it takes to help your athlete succeed.
Yeah, I love that. Just being there and being
Hmm.
present and engaged. I think that just goes so much further, and that strengthens the relationship. And so, kind of, as we enter the fourth quarter of our conversation, I think,
Hmm.
you know, when we talk about relationships, can you talk about any players, or do you have any stories of athletes that you've, kind of worked with and you've watched transform over time?
Yeah. Um, so one that comes to mind is actually the first kid I ever trained. His name is Anthony McManus. He's actually a trainer on staff with us now,
Nice.
which is crazy. But yeah, he was a sixth grader. This was probably back in like 2017. I don't know, somewhere around that. Or 2016, 20, I don't know, something around that. I was in high school still training him, but he was just a kid that we lived in the same, same area, and he played on my dad's program, and so he knew who I was and stuff, and I would train with him. And then one day I just asked if they wanted to come, or if he wanted to come train with me. So he wasn't very good at all, very goofy, very uncoordinated, but he was a young kid. And And I honestly, like, I know his goal was to play college basketball, and this is why I've learned a lot too. Is like don't really judge kids, just by, where they're at in their stage, just because everyone's process is a little bit different. But back then, I was like, I don't think this kid can, play, but kept working with him, and I, even though I didn't think that, I was still giving him my all because I wanted to help him though. I knew that was his goal, so I was just going to give it everything I had and help him get there. And as time went on, he started developing, started growing into his body, and turned out to be a nice player. And now he's playing NAIA, playing at an NAIA school now, and then he's helping us train and stuff too. So it's really cool to kind of see his transformation, and kind of what he's been through. He's overcame a lot, been through a lot of obstacles. A lot of people, counted him out, had him under the radar, but I stayed, right there by his side and just did whatever I can to help him succeed. And so that's a really cool story. And then I have some other ones too, kind of just like same thing. I had a group of 3 players. 2 of them were like the first. Anthony was one of them. Then I had one of my guys named Eli. He was one of the first players I trained too, and he was probably the goofiest out of them all. Like this kid, honestly, like this kid, I was like, dude, I don't know like how we're gonna do it, but I'm gonna go try. This is gonna be kind of like an experiment. And he ended up being like, freshman on varsity. Ended up, being a pretty solid high school player, and then he ended up going to play some D3 basketball. But then there was another kid named Jay Price. This was kind of like a group of 3. They all lived kind of in my area. And they were all just kids who just wanted it, man. They wanted to be good. They wanted to, they were doing whatever it takes. Like during COVID, we would work out 3 times a day, still staying prepared. We had no idea if this high school season was going to come back, but we'd go out, run hills, we'd go to the beach, do beach workouts. We'd, be at the park in the morning and at night. And they just always be around you. Like come over to my house. We do mindset, sessions. We do leadership sessions. And it was just like an everyday grind, with them, there for them, 24/7. And I was always at their games, supporting them and whatnot. And then, they all, went on to do some pretty cool things, man. And that was that's kind of like the coolest training experience, or, I guess coolest like relationship that I've built with some of my players is just being with them there 24/7 during COVID, and just having them, come over to my house, going to the gym with us multiple times a day. That was like some really cool stories, that I'll never forget, and something that, shaped, where I'm at today.
And that's why we do it, right? It's
Oh
just
yeah.
the development. And
Hmm.
so, talking about long-term development, like how do
Hmm.
you focus on? Because I think so often we'll judge and label a kid in 3rd grade now, right? Like
Hmm.
I've seen rankings, and you probably have too, of like
Hmm.
the top 25 club teams, like
Yeah.
in the state of California in 2nd grade. It's like, who
Yeah.
cares, you
Yeah.
know?
Those things don't matter, man. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like I said, like I don't do this anymore. I don't judge anybody anymore, just because
yeah,
like it's like you never know where this kid could be at in 5 years from now. I've seen
right.
so much changes. I mean, I'm still young, but I've just seen the basketball world at pretty much every level and been around, and I've just seen so many different things that can happen to anybody. So you can't write a kid off early on. And just being a trainer now too, I've taken beginners, like to varsity level as freshmen. So it's like you don't know what can happen. So one thing I try to tell parents is like, no, don't get caught up in the rankings. Don't get caught up in the highlights and the social media, because it's almost like a trick. It's gonna trick you. Like these kids, they look like super good on social media, but when you get with them in person, they're not as good as it. They make it out to be. Or these rankings. Same thing with the rankings. It's like these things really don't matter, because so much can change in the next 4 years, 5 years, that someone is going to be at the top. And like my best friend, Blake Seitz, he plays overseas right now. He uh he was a kid that I was always like growing up, like I was better than him. He was kind of like a late bloomer, but growing up I was always better than him. And he was kind of written off. We had these rankings in our area in San Diego, and he was always written off. I'm never kind of on them. And there was so many of my teammates and friends that were just way better than him, and it was like apparent. But here he comes. He's unheard of. Not really. No one talks about him. Freshman on varsity, kills it. Killing it all the way through high school. Gets some D2 offers. Ends up going JUCO. Then he gets a full ride scholarship to a D2, and didn't even really start. Didn't really even get minutes on like his JUCO or his D2 team to start. But then, his second year in JUCO, or on his JUCO team, best player on the team, one of the leading scorers in the state. Then he goes to a D2 school, and same thing, doesn't start, not getting any minutes really, and then all of a sudden there he is, he's killing. And then his senior year, his last year in college, he's one of the best players in the whole country. He's a all-star. He makes the all-star game for D2. Then he's overseas. He's killing it. So it's like you don't know where these people could be, and like that's the thing I tell parents. It's hard. It's hard because that's what the world thrives on, is social media and all these rankings and all these highlights and all this stuff. But it could literally fool you, man. And those things don't mean anything, because everybody runs their own race differently, and everybody's going to finish that marathon at a different point. And, you just have to keep your head on and continuously work, because, things can change over time, and you could be at the top or you could be at the bottom, so just try to just trust the process and stay focused on what's important now. And the only thing that's important now is just, being where you are, being where your feet are at, and just focusing on the present moment, what things that you can control. You can't control the rankings. You can't control what you see on social media. Just keep doing what you can control, and you're going to get, what you want at the end, as long as you don't quit. Like I said earlier, you can't lose unless you quit. So just stay on that right path.
I love it. And I think that's a great place to leave our podcast off on. It's coming full circle to what you talked about at the beginning, and just knowing that your time is coming and it's right around the corner, because, recognizing that your time may not be on social media right now, but if you continue to work, like, things will end up working out. And so I love that message. And what would your final kind of words of advice and thoughts be about impacting athletes for the coaches and parents that are listening?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of the same thing I kind of said earlier. And I feel like I say that anytime someone's asked me this on a podcast, I kind of say the same thing, but it's just like, my thing is I have a clothing brand. It's call it Dream Chaser. Right. And that's kind of like my thing. I'm just a dream chaser. No matter what anybody tells me, I'm just going to continuously chase my dream. I've had so many people tell me, people that were so close to me, tell me that I can't do this, that I can't, do that. And, I just cancel the noise out and just chase my dreams, I think I'm a true testament to, you can do anything that you set your mind to, no matter what anybody tells you. And I'm not saying like I'm successful, but by any means, or I'm this big, trainer, but I think I've defied odds, when people have counted me out, when people have told me I couldn't do things or I shouldn't do things, or even like when I thought I couldn't do it, I still stayed on that path and kept chasing my dreams. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, whatever your dreams are, man, go chase them. Whoever you are out there listening to this, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to accomplish, you can do it, but you just got to keep chasing that dream, and don't let those hard times, deter you from your path and what you're destined to do.
100%. Well, I appreciate your time so much today, Gabe. I got a couple pages of notes, and we're tapped in. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on. It was a blast being on the podcast, and I'm happy we're able to connect.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.